Hey, True Believers England teen here with Twiddles. Hopefully he behaves. And I saw this interview. I saw this article here by Bleeding Cool. And I thought, you know what, let's check this out because I'm very interested in the case. If you're not familiar with it, basically we have certain comic book creators who are trying to claim rights to popular characters, including Steve Ditko with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. This came up and I thought, okay, I'm interested. Let's read through this and find out what happens. This is by Rich Johnston of Bleeding Cool, so take it however you will. I know some people aren't exactly on to this guy. So yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review Hasbro's bench trial victory in a dispute over ownership rights to the Game of Life. With the heirs of the designer of the Game of Life, Markham Concepts, Inc., argued lower courts relied on what it called the misguided instance and expense rule created in the 60s to find the game a work for hire. The lower court said Bill Markham and his employees created it at the behest of Hasbro's predecessor, Milton Bradley. However, aside from the game in question, this decision may have impacted the attempts of the estate of Steve Ditko and other legendary comic book creators to force Marvel to revert copyrights to characters Spider-Man, Strange, and others. In response, Marvel Comics filed their own lawsuit to dismiss these claims as referring to work-for-hire practices, which should be ineligible for copyright reversion. Now, Bill Markham created the game and the prototype, and the recent attempts to get copyrighted returned to Markham's estate was refused by the court. It determined the creation of the game was work-for-hire, created at the request of the publisher and at their expense, and so was owned by Hasbro, but the Supreme Court was petitioned to clarify the status of works and made for hire before the 1976 Copyright Act and still covered by the 1909. And then it goes on and we see on petition for writ of, you know what, I'm not good at legalese. You can read it right here as I leave it up for a little bit. Stan Lee's brother, Larry Lieber, and the estate of Steve Ditko, Gene Colan, Don Heck, Don Rico have filed amicus brief in support of Markham with comic book lawyer supreme Mark Toberoff. The filing stated, it would be hard to find a better example of this than the amici who worked with as freelancer from home on their own steam with no contract, no financial security, and no employment benefits, but without whom Marvel might not even be in business today. These prolific freelance writers and artists who redefined the impecunious comic book business in the 1960s are literal poster children for the termination right, exemplifying the very imbalance Congress sought to rectify. One need only look at the billion-dollar franchise these freelancers were instrumental in creating. Spider-Man, Thor, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Falcon, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Blade, but have zero financial benefits from. To understand the importance of resolving the issues presented, justifying this court's review, the pervasive use of the instance and expense test to eradicate the termination rights of such freelancers is not only unmoored from the 1909 Act, but it invites historical revisionism since the termination right does not vest until 56 years after publication. Corporate behemoths like Marvel, were built on the success of such creations, but barely had one or two employees at the time. It purchased such freelance material for pittance. Now use their current stature to impose corporate authorship of work for hire under conditions that bore no resemblance to this and an so-called test that enabled them to do so. Inevitably, applications of the malleable instance and expense test nearly always ends in finding of work for hire with results that are often counterintuitive and unfair. Now, they were joined by William Morris Endeavor, this talent agency, who also sought clarification over the law, citing the rules of the screenplay of Star Wars differed from those for Empire Strikes Back because of the year each was created, as did the Performing Guild SAG after the Guild for Industry Performers, citing how 200 of the Rolling Stones' top 500 songs of all time were created before the 1976 cutoff and 300 after. So that is that is the message there. You know what? I wouldn't mind popping up the whoops. I don't want to comment, but I wouldn't mind popping up the comments. I remember when they would actually just show up anyway. But before we get into this, though, I guess I should put up my position on this. In all honesty, I hope Steve Ditko wins. I hope Stan Lee wins. I would like to see control out of Marvel's hands. I don't think, granted, for the movies and such like that, they're doing fine. But what we're seeing as far as the comic books, I don't think they've got respect for the characters anymore. I don't see a lot of evidence for that. We've watched them multiple times claim that these are not real characters. They're only fictional, of course, which is a factual statement. No, I'm not a crazy man here, but I do understand that if you as a writer, if you as a creator cannot believe in these characters as if they were real people and write them as if they were real people, then you can't convince a reader to do that. Also, you do not care what happens to them. There used to be something called the illusion of change that Stan Lee would say. And what it would be is during your story, you could do all the changes you want, but at the end, it had to come back to normal for the next guy to pick up. But that doesn't seem to be the way it is. More so, we in the 1980s had a book called The Official Guide to the Marvel Universe. And it told us what the power levels were. It told us what these characters were. And you had to write these characters within these guidelines. And I think it sparked off a lot of creativity. Unfortunately, it seems to be, hey, you know what would be cool? If we have Spider-Man all of a sudden have laser eyes. He's a fictional character. You don't need to do anything. And I'm going off on a tangent, but it explains why I would love to see these things shift over to other owners. I don't know what would happen. I don't, but I do know what's happening. And if it's something, if it ends up being something that extreme that needs to shake these characters up, fine. We could end up getting worse though. And that is something also that has to be taken into account. I, for one, also just going off on the battle of creators' rights. I read a book, by the way. I've got it right here, and I always tout it because I think it's a very interesting read. It'll probably be transparent thanks to the green screen, but it's called Marvel Comics: The Untold Story, and it goes through everything. It goes through what the editors, what the owners would say is, now this is your deal. And creators have been trying to get rights to the characters created from Marvel for decades. Though, if you ever read a book on Jack Kirby, I used to have one right next to me, but if you ever read a book on Jack Kirby, there's one called The King of Comics. And it goes through what Jack had to do to get recognition. And mind you, a lot of people nowadays, thanks to the movies, thanks to the cameos and the fact that Jack Kirby died near 10 years before Iron Man shows up, a lot of people believe Stan Lee did it by himself. And they don't even know he created, much less Jack Kirby getting monetary compensation. And that's what he cared about. Jack Kirby was a Depression baby. And he remembered his family going through the Depression. So when he got married, he never wanted that for his family. So he's always chasing the dollar, chasing the dollar. Excellent artist, poor businessman. And he never really got the monetary compensation that he deserved, especially when compared to Stan Lee. And that's actually something that caused a rift on him. Very complicated story, not something I'm going to get done in a 10-minute video here. I would love to see these creators or families of the creator to start getting the monetization there. I would love to see Kirby do. I mean, the man freaking created the Marvel Universe with Stan Lee. In some cases, much like Stan Lee created characters on his own, Jack Kirby created some characters on his own, most famously, of course, Silver Surfer. I am so waiting for this bird to poop on my shoulder the way he is right now, but he's chill, so shh, it looks like he's about to go to sleep. You see that? See the eyes going? Okay. So I think just out of fairness, it would be nice. Let Marvel chase them for the use of their characters. And granted, I understand. They were what do they call it? Freelancers. They were freelance artists, freelance writers. They signed a contract to write a book and so forth. So whatever characters they were created for Marvel and DC at the time, I get it. I get it. Some people will argue against. And fine. Let me know if you believe that Jack Kirby, that Steve Ditko, and Stan Lee, the whole 9 yards. Now, Stan Lee got paid. But if you think that all they had the rights to was what they got, then by all means, let me know in the comments below. I know one person, I know one family, however, I think we could all get behind the fact that Bill Finger, his family deserves $1 or $2. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to click like and share, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and all that kind of stuff. And if you like this particular rant, by all means, click on the ones popping up here. You know, that's a generic thing because I have no idea what video I'm going to pop up there. Just click on it. That one's fun too. Might not have the bird in it, though. I don't know. Anyway, if you don't mind helping out the channel, going over to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the till. Thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers. Thank you very, very much for watching.